Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
Sound Cartel.
Young people approach the world with a heady mix of boundary pushing and fluency in the technologies of the day. So it's no wonder that Generation Z and younger are creating opportunities in ways contrary to the expectations of parents and perhaps society. From Sound Cartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. In his role as strategic advisor for enterprising partnerships, Frank Wyatt meets a lot of people, from the top echelons of corporate life to wealthy middle-market business operators to small business owners. But there's a business demographic which particularly interests him, and that's young people, teenagers even, starting out on their own business journey with enthusiasm, amazing ideas, and often technology know-how that mature business people could only dream of. These are the people we want in our own businesses, Frank says, if we want to innovate and capture new opportunities. Problem is, he continues, too many young people are going unrecognised and unappreciated. And Frank has a plan to rectify that. First, Heather Dawson asks, what are we really missing out on because we don't give young people enough chances in business?
Comprehensively, we've discovered that there are hidden talents amongst young people who believe that they haven't got the right or the authority to actually start their own business. And yet, many of them desire to do just that. We've had 14-year-olds come to us who have told us that they've closed down 4 or 5 businesses because they've been told they don't have the authority to start a business. Those are now 20-year-olds running multi-million-dollar businesses. We had a young guy who we discovered sleeping under a bridge. He was homeless at the time, and he now runs a multi-million-dollar business with a branch in London, and he was about to start a branch in New York when COVID struck. He's just holding his breath at the moment, waiting for COVID to lift, so he'll go into New York eventually. He rang me one day to say, Frank, can you get me a new mentor, someone who can take me to my $3 million turnover? I said, you are telling me by default that you've hit 2 million. He said, yes, I have, Frank, today. Well, we just changed the metrics for the current mentor. Told him he had to lift his game.
But it does illustrate that the line from school to work is not a straight line anymore.
It is no longer a straight line. And I hold the view that we're still telling kids lies in a lot of cases. We continue to try to convince kids to go to school and then go to university and there'll be a job at the end of it because we want to believe it ourselves. And the truth is that it's not there. So what we've done is said to policymakers, there's a third E that you need to add in your context: education, employment and entrepreneurship. Young people today have all the technology that's available to them to do all types of businesses around startups in the technology space. I've got other young people who started up their own business. We introduced them to corporates because we thought that the corporate needed that capability. They're now working for the corporate because the corporate purchased that small business, brought them in as an adjunct to the company, and they're now running ANZ and NAB's digital marketing, doing the SEO. In other words, what words are working every day, so they're adjusting the words and adjusting the nuances, etc., on the banking modelling. Story after story of young people able to do this.
Well, these young, smart, entrepreneurial people, the thing is, if you're an employer, if you run a business, you want them in your business. But how do you recognise them?
I once asked the CEO of the Bank of Melbourne, which would you prefer? A young person approaching you for a job who's gone through school with a silver spoon in their mouth, gone to university and ended up on your desk as an applicant for a job, but their only level of resilience and entrepreneurship is to have gone through uni, as opposed to a young person who's actually started their own business, learnt entrepreneurial mindsets, had to go through the tough times of working out how the hell to get the money, and always creative about what else, what's next, what can I do, he said to me, I want the second one as our employees because they're the creative ones who will generate new opportunities for us.
So how do we support our young entrepreneurs?
Well,
Frank?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. And so I sat down this morning and I looked at one of our programs and thought to myself, well, what happens if companies were actually to sponsor this? $2,000 sponsorship per company for 40 young people, so we need to generate 40 businesses that are willing to put $2,000 up, would get 40 young people going through a 6 months program of entrepreneurship. Now, in that time, we could expect those young people to be giving back to the company, whereby they're talking to the company about the kind of thinking and creativity and innovation. Now, many companies struggle to get innovative conversations going inside their company. A young person's doing that all the time. They might bring 2 or 3 of their mates from different type of innovations into the company. Those innovations may not apply to that company at all, but what it's doing is getting the juices going inside a company to start to think more divergently rather than the flat line of convergent thinking. All of a sudden, they've got a conversation that's going and enabling them to actually participate in that. And the young people love it. They're actually pitching in a sense, but they're pitching an idea rather than for money because they actually want someone else to enjoy the journey of what they're producing and they're doing.
In fact, you say, Frank, that there are dangers if companies don't embrace these young
Well, the Grattan
entrepreneurial
Foundation
types.
has just produced some data that says that in some areas of Australia, and there are quite a lot of them, let's not kid ourselves that it's just kind of the poor working class suburbs. In fact, it's a lot of rural communities where the rate of unemployment of young people would be between 15 to 40%. If I'm a young male in a country town and I don't have a job and I'm not in the footy team because I'm not part of the selected 18, then I'm likely to do something to attract attention because my ego needs a bit of stroking. I'll get in with the wrong crowd because that's the group that will accept me at the moment. I might happen to kick a window in. We know that this is what happens. We know that crime rises when unemployment occurs, and it occurs not because we've got wanton criminals. It occurs because we've got people who are disconnected. You keep being told, all you got to do is go and get a job, son, but there are no jobs. You're likely to want to phase out of that. And so drugs are likely to occur. It's a real investment in optimising the capability that's there in our society called young people, who will bring new stimulus to our economies by new ideas, new creativity, new energy, new intelligence. And by the way, many of them have skills in technology that most of us in middle markets and small businesses who have grown up by bootstrapping don't actually have. My view is that small business owners invariably want to contribute. Most business leaders that I meet are genuinely decent people who want to contribute. They simply don't have an avenue to do so. Well, I can tell you, pick up the phone and talk to us. We will actually find the way for you to contribute to these young people. We have mentors enrolling all the time because young people just need a bit of extra information. They might need access to a network that you can get. Door opening processes are really important at every level of business. Connecting people through networks is the way in which we do business in Australia and across the world. Young people are no different. They just struggle a little harder to get those doors to open because it's vital. There's a vibrancy about young people and a naivety in some cases, but it's the beauty that they bring of being naive and genuine. So you can open up a lot of stuff around that. So it's fantastic. We'll also ask you for a contribution towards our programs that we run through our registered charity called iGen Foundation. And we do a lot of work with disconnected young people who could never afford to buy into our programs, but we generate revenue through sponsorship to enable them to participate.
That was Enterprising Partnerships Strategic Advisor Frank Wyatt. Business Essentials Daily is a Sound Cartel podcast. Executive producer is Heather Dawson. Producers are Nick Schilberger, Chris Ashmore, and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts and Belinda Trimboli. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week.
Sound Cartel.
This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.